You're listening to All Things Real Estate on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN. Once again, here's your hosts, Gary Kelly and Brad Avergon.
Welcome back to the second half of All Things Real Estate. I have taken some medication from the 70s to calm myself down.
Breathing.
That's not true, but whatever. Brad, let me paint a different scenario. Sure. The scenario now is you're in your house. You've been in your house for years. You're comfortable in your house. Okay. You maybe don't want to go outside in the wild where there's viruses and things like that. At the same time, you're sitting on a pile of equity and you want to tap into that so that you have living expenses, maybe take some pressure off, maybe do some repairs, whatever the case may be. I was at breakfast this morning with some friends and they were talking about a reverse mortgage. And I said, I don't know anything about a reverse mortgage, but I'll tell you that I hear that they're not good. And so, Brad, if you're sitting on some equity, and right now, if you look in Boston, they say that the equity in people's houses has gone up 20% this past year, which to me is crazy, but it is what it is. How do you tap into that in a sensible, lower risk kind of way?
Well, that's a great question, Gary, and it's one that people don't ask often enough. And let me kind of elaborate on that. So, equity in your home is an asset, but it's not really a liquid asset until you make it a liquid asset. So it's not like money in the bank. It's not like a stock that you can go sell. You can say, sell that stock today, and I need the cash. The way you prepare for that is that after you have your regular home financing, assuming you have a first mortgage on your home still, or if you don't have, you've paid off that mortgage. Let's say you've been in your house a number of years and you paid off and you have no mortgage whatsoever. It's a very, very good idea to open up an equity line of credit. And the great thing about an equity line of credit is it basically costs you to have that asset become a liquid asset and usable if you need it. It costs you about $50 a year. There's no points, no closing costs to equity lines of credit. They're usually interest only, so the payments are going to be minimum for a period of 10 years, sometimes 15. And then whatever the balance is after that period of time, that would amortize out. The reason that I'm such a big fan of them is it allows people to be able to tap this asset when they need to. Sometimes it could be something that having nothing to do with selling their home. It could be the car breaks, the water heater goes, we need a new roof and we need it now. And you can write a check and it's interest only on for whatever that balance is, which makes the payment lower. There's no principal. The second thing it allows you to do is to use that line of credit before you put your home up for sale. This is all part of the planning part of, we want to move from house A to house B, whether it's downsizing in the same area or maybe moving to Florida where it's warmer. But there's certain things that need to happen. First of all, as you would let them know, is certain things on the house need to probably get fixed up a little bit. I mean, if you're selling your house, the first thing you mentioned in the first half of the show was that front door, painting the front door. Why would you want to sell a house with a peeling painted front door? It's the first impression that the listing agent, the buyer's agent is going to get and that the buyers are going to get. Why not take a little bit of money, paint that front door, shampoo the carpets if you've got carpets, or if they need to be replaced, replace the carpets, whatever someone like yourself as a listing agent would advise them that would make that house get top dollar. You want to do that. Well, sometimes folks don't have the money in their bank to be able to do that. Why not tap the equity line for that? That's a perfect occasion where you want to be able to use that equity line to put your house in its best light so you get the most money for it. And most of the time, I'm going to imagine, Gary, the improvements that you're going to suggest, the cost of those improvements, whatever you get, you're going to more than make it up, right? If you paint the front door, it's going to cost you short money compared to the impression that somebody's going to get with that beautifully painted front door, carpets, so
Yeah,
forth and so on.
where we end up on that is things like paint. I think you're absolutely right on. Some people will say, I want to completely remodel my kitchen. Generally speaking, you're not going to get dollar to dollar back on that. You're going to get something less. Sometimes you remodel the kitchen because you want to live there and you want to enjoy it, and look at it that way. Don't get hung up on the return on the investment. Just enjoy it.
Right.
But in generally speaking, I don't recommend, if you want to paint the cabinets in the kitchen, I'm all for that. That actually looks good. And today painted cabinets are in. So
Right.
makes
Right.
sense.
It's basically giving the house a little bit of a facelift, right? A little bit of makeup,
It's a refresh.
it's a refresh, exactly. So that's one thing that the equity line is very, very useful for. The second part of it, and a lot of people don't even realize this, is when their house is for sale, they may want to go try to lock up another home that they want to purchase. But what a lot of people don't realize is they need money for that. More than over and above that $1,000, maybe they could scrape $1,000 out of their checking account, but within a week to 2 weeks, they're going to enter a purchase and sale agreement, which in our area typically requires a 5% of the purchase price down. So, if you're talking about a $400,000 property, and they put $1,000 down at the offer, within 2 weeks of that offer, they need another $19,000 that they may not have access to readily, or they might have to sell all sorts of stocks to get those. And it may mean maybe it's not a good time to sell those stocks or liquidate those other investments. The equity line's a wonderful opportunity to be able to pull that equity from your home before it's sold. It may very well be under agreement, but you can use that to tie up the next property you're going to be going to. And then when you sell your current home, the balance of that equity line is paid off at that closing. And it's interest only, so they can carry it for a period of time. It's a really, really wonderful tool, whether you're selling your house or you're not selling your house.
I like that a lot. The client that I was with in their car out in Lancaster, they have sold their home and they're currently in a rental, and that's a fine strategy. I'm okay with that. They are very unhappy. Going back to drugs from the 70s, apparently there are people in that complex that enjoy drugs from the 70s that are legal now that weren't legal then, and they're just fed up with it. They just don't like it. They don't want to live that way. Had they done what you were suggesting, they may have been able to go into a different house instead of an interim stop at a rental.
Right. And that brings up a really good point, Gary, which is the planning part of this. Sitting down with someone like yourself and someone like me, well in advance of ever putting your home on the market, well in advance of looking at new houses and going through that planning phase, I think is critical. I think it can relieve a lot of stress and avoid a lot of expensive and somewhat uncomfortable mistakes by putting things in place. The fact is, Gary, you cannot get an equity line on your home once you list it. So it's important that they have a discussion with someone like me well before they put that property on the market. And then once they put that property on the market, typically an equity line, let's assume they did it for purposes of preparing to sell their home. If they pay off an equity line within the first 3 years, typically there's a prepayment penalty of about 350 to, let's say, between 350 and 500. That's very inexpensive compared to what you're getting. Right. You're getting the ability to tap equity in your home. Other than that, there's no prepayment penalty, right? You're not going to get all this massive charges and such. So it's a great opportunity to prepare and gives you time to not only make the repairs, but also that you want to on your current home, but also to prepare to buy the new home for however long that takes you to do. So it's a great way to go and at a relatively low cost.
That's great. Well, Brad, I want to thank you for the time today. We do have a couple of minutes left here. What would be your parting comment to anyone that's out looking for homes in this particular marketplace?
So, I think patience is the right word. As you had indicated, don't get overly caught up. Listen to your realtor, know your market. So do a lot of research up front. And then wait for the right opportunity. Try to put yourself in a comfortable position so that you're not under pressure. the situation where you described, where those poor people are in a home, renting a home where they're not comfortable with the neighbors at all. You try not to do that if you can avoid it. So patience is really key. Just one quick note to reverse mortgages you brought up. Reverse mortgages are a wonderful tool for the right situation, but they're typically very expensive in closing fees. So you want to use it very carefully. If any of our listeners have any questions about that, feel free to give me a call at 978-375-5531.
All right. And I would say to people, you need to be agile and opportunistic. And what's that mean? You go in advance, you get your ducks lined up, you get pre-approved, pre-qualified, so that you are ready to go when you find the right property. Don't get sucked into, there's 100 cars here, so I have to make an offer. If the property is right, then the property's right. If not, then don't get sucked into that. And then by having your ducks all lined up in advance, you position yourself to be able to act appropriately when it happens. And yeah, every real estate agent has some tricks in their sleeve on how to get noticed more with an offer than someone else. They aren't all guaranteed to work. At the same time, you can try to be ready. Nothing worse than going out with someone and having them find the property that they love and having them say, well, my pre-approval expired. Okay, well, we can get the pre-approval extended. I'm not worried about that, but it was where, what bank, that kind of thing. It's always a concern. Brad, how would someone reach you if they wanted to have a further discussion?
The best way to reach me, Gary, is via my cell, which again is 978-375-5531, or via email at Avergon, that's Bavergon at envisionbank.com. And Gary, how do they reach you?
I'm on my cell at 508-733-6005. I am Gary at movewithgary.com. I'm with Remax Executive Realty. I want to thank folks like Harry, who does the intro for us and always gives us good feedback. Today, who's behind the glass, making us sound good. Keith, who makes the videos excellent when they're all put together. So I want to thank everyone. I want to thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Gary.
And you've talked me off, you've talked Howard Beale off the ledge. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
You've been listening to All Things Real Estate on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN.